Welcome back to Midday. From Little Patty to Tiny Tina, women have always had an important place in Australian music, but rock and roll's never been the easiest career path for a young girl starting out. 1995 has been a great year for women in rock, with such diverse talents as Christina New, Max Sharam and Tina Arena, three totally different but equally talented women achieving well-deserved success. A few years back, Lindy Morrison was a drummer with the acclaimed Aussie band The Go-Betweens. Lindy's now made the quantum leap from musician to author by penning the definitive guide to Australian women in rock and pop from the 1950s to the present day. And would you please give her a big welcome, Lindy Morrison.
Just like the fight for women's rights movements, my sisters, we gotta keep on doing it.
Take a seat, Lindy. The other big success of this year has, of course, been Meryl Bainbridge, the first female Aussie artist ever to hit #1 with a debut self-titled single.
Yes.
Self-penned single.
Self-penned. Now, what that means is that she's the first woman in Australia...
Got to get that little bit of hair off your lip there, Lindy. I hate it when that happens, don't you, when it rhymes?
Yeah, I know. I'm so glad that you fixed that up for me. That would have been awfully embarrassing to do the whole segment with that hair there.
Well, you would have got home and someone would have said, God, he let you do the whole thing and didn't tell you about it.
I know, and you would have been in the bad books, not me.
We all would have been.
Now, Meryl Bainbridge is the first woman in Australia to have a #1 hit with a song that she wrote herself. And I think it's a true example of how the role of women in rock and pop in Australia has changed. Now, Christina Amphlett, she had a single, Every Time I Think About You, I Touch Myself. Remember that song?
I do indeed.
And, great song. And but that was co-written. So that was the only other #1 that got quite close. And, of course, Helen Reddy, who was living in America at the time, had I Am Woman, which was a #1 hit, but it was co-written by a person called Ray Burton. So Meryl Bainbridge it's very significant that Meryl Bainbridge it's happened now in 1995.
Why has it taken so long?
Well, I wrote a book to explain that. But I'll tell you why it took so long. I'll try to tell you why in a short time.
Condense a book to 20 seconds, if you wouldn't mind, Lindy.
Because women have had to face special obstacles, that's why, in the Australian music industry. And a lot of those obstacles have now been eradicated, I think. And I think the music industry is looking at women and encouraging them more sympathetically, we would hope.
We've had some great successes over the years, haven't we? Artists like Wendy Matthews and Jenny Morris, Christina, who you mentioned. I mean, the list got Renee Gayer a few years back. There have been lots and lots of them. Where did you start your book? What year?
I started my book in the late 50s. Well, I started talking about how early rock and roll was dominated by white males copying black American music. And because in the early days of rock and roll it was seen to be such a bad thing, in fact they called it the devil's music, women had no access to the stages. And the first woman who actually had some success in this country was a woman called Judy Cannon. But the other women who are better known is a woman like Laurel Lee. And I know you've got a little bit of Laurel Lee to show, but before
Indeed we have.
There she is, a beautiful woman.
Yeah, the late
She's absolutely
Laurel Lee.
beautiful, yes. She died in 1991. Laurel Lee was raised in performing in all the sideshow alleys in Australia. She went round all the Royal Easter shows. Some of you might remember those shows in Sideshow Alley that they used to play in.
Who remembers that? Anybody?
Anyone remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Laurel Lee, I used to go and see her in Brisbane every year. I was absolutely in love with that woman, and she was just astounding. Now, she never recorded. Now, a woman like that never recorded in this country. She never got a record deal.
The opportunities just weren't there?
Yeah, the opportunities weren't there. And what she had to say about the industry, before she died, she was interviewed in 1988, she said that to be a woman in the industry in those days, you had to be a professional virgin. You had to be very, very ladylike, very, very pris. You had to do everything according to the book. She said that you weren't allowed to sing songs that were deemed to be male rock and roll songs, and that she was kicked off 6 O'Clock Rock, which was Johnny O'Keefe's show, because she wanted to sing Shake, Rattle and Roll, which he said was a male song.
A very sexist industry.
Well, yes.
Some would say that it still is, but obviously the moral of your book is that it's a lot better now than it's ever
well,
had.
I think it is a lot better now.
Okay, well, let's move along. Judy Stone, she was everyone's favourite on Bandstand. She was incredibly popular.
Beautiful woman. And she had a hit with 4,003,221 Tears From Now.
You did that well. Here she is with Cole and the whole gang.
Music. Oh, yes. And Judy had this to say about Bandstand. She said, that it looked like we were all cloned at the time. We all wore little gingham dresses and we all had to have a certain image. And if you didn't have that image, then you wouldn't get on Bandstand. And that opens up the question of Betty McQuaid.
I was going to lead to her. She had enormous problems
Yes,
getting
she did.
on Bandstand.
That's right. Betty McQuaid had enormous problems being on Bandstand.
Because she was enormous.
The compere said she was too fat.
There you go.
Yeah.
Dearie me.
She was 11.5 stone, and the compere said she was too fat. That they and she said they just wanted the pretty little girls.
Dear, so no
Yeah.
Betty. Betty's still playing, singing?
Well, no, she's not still singing, but I know she's living in Brisbane.
Okay. Little Patty, of course, an all-time favourite. She's still going strong, isn't
Little
she?
Patty is just about to release an album called Moments Like This. And that's later footage than when she first had her hits, I think. And Little Patty, do you remember Little Patty when
Yeah,
she
of
had
course we do.
Stompy, all right.
Stompy Wompy Thingy Jig, right?
Stompy Maroubra.
Yeah.
So, and here's my blonde hair to Stompy Wompy Reel. Yes, now, one of the things she said about the industry at the time, you're not getting bored?
No, it's interesting. It's interesting.
Okay.
Keep
One
going.
of the things she said about the industry at the time was that no matter how many #1 hits you had, if you were a woman, you would never head the bill. Never. You would never headline, that means. You'd never
Yeah, it's
headline.
terrible, isn't it?
I know.
Now, what about with the pub rock scene? Let's forget
All right,
about
okay.
the TV for a while.
Okay.
Because that opened up a few opportunities for
Yeah.
women with a bit of attitude, didn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yes. But it also, the only women who could really get through that were Renee Gayer and Christina Amphlett, who were fantastically original women who broke all of the boundaries that had been established before. They were women who were women, knew what they wanted to do. They were very independent. I mean, Christina Amphlett was just fabulous.
Of the band, the Divinals, we should say, for those who are saying, who's Christina Amphlett?
And Renee Gayer, of course, who really, did blues and soul. And, well, I mean, both these women are still recording all the time and putting out wonderful stuff.
And it has to be said that both those women have stupendous voices.
Yes, absolutely stupendous voices. But in relation to the book, I would say that the pub rock scene in many ways kept women back, because remember, the pubs up until 1965, women were not allowed to drink in bars, right? So after two...
God, you really have to scratch your head to think that was really the case,
Yes,
don't you? It
exactly.
just seems so anachronistic.
Exactly. Two women chained themselves to a bar in Brisbane, Merle Thornton and Rosalie Bogner in Toowong. It made headlines right around Australia. And after that, the pubs were opened up for bands, right? And women could come and watch them. But still, it was traditionally male. So we had bands like Akadaka, Cold Chisels, The Sports, The Angels.
Midnight Oil, in excess, blah, blah, blah. Now listen, we can't...
Are we talking too much?
No, we're having a wonderful time.
Okay, all right.
She's doing well, isn't she? I think so. Now listen, there's Helen Reddy, there's an enormous number, but...
Helen Reddy...
But...
What?
Well, there's Helen Reddy.
Yeah, can I just...
go on, talk about Helen
Now,
Reddy.
you know, Helen Reddy wrote I Am Woman, okay?
Yeah.
Now, I just want to tell you something about
Co-wrote
Helen.
it.
Helen Reddy won a bandstand competition, right? The competition that she won, the prize was to go to America and have a recording contract. She got to New York and they said, oh, sorry, you haven't passed the audition. We wanted a male group.
Dear me.
Yeah. When she then wrote I Am Woman, and when she appeared on the NBC TV network, they told her that she didn't have to wear a bra, but she'd have to shave under her armpits.
Oh, dear. Now, before we finish this, we couldn't wind up a conversation like this without mentioning Kylie.
You must be writing your own songs, thank you, and being published, because that's how you make money in the music industry. You make money through publishing, because there's no performance copyright in this country.
Well, Lindy, it's a grand thing you've done, my dear. Lindy's book is out soon, this side of Christmas.
I'll just say it's been put out by Oz Music, which is a federal government body that's been set up to encourage people to go into the music industry. And Oz Music actually commissioned me to do this book, and this book is going into all the schools, the TAFEs, the Skillshares. And in fact, it's a training book. It's with a whole lot of other books that are about the contemporary music industry.
Well, I'm sure it's a great read as being a good reference book. Ladies and gentlemen, please thank Lindy Morrison.